Good morning, students. In this module, we are going to continue with the Gupta Age of Civilization, and we are going to do about Gupta Administration. What we are going to do about Gupta Administration? The important things are, first of all, in Gupta Administration, we had monarchy. The second important feature was the Council of Ministers, and besides that, the important thing about the administration was the provincial and local administration. Now, provincial obviously was into various provinces, but local administration can be divided into the village as well as town administration. So here, let's continue today's module with the administration of the Gupta Age. Now, here we see Gupta Age. During this time, the most important feature in the administration was monarchy. Monarchy was the prevailing form of the government at this time during Gupta Age, and the theory of divinity of kings became popular. That means they were considered as messengers of God. Divine features, larger than life perspective was given to the kings. The Gupta kings were compared to various other gods of that particular time period, the nature gods, and various kings were given as, you can say, the avatars or the forms of various gods like Yam, Varun, Indra, and as well as Kuber. They were compared to Vishnu as regards their function of preserving and protecting. Now, Vishnu god is considered to be the protector, and therefore a king was considered to be of that level that he has to be a protector of his kingdom, a person who has to preserve the kingdom and the people and the resources of the kingdom. Lakshmi, wife of Vishnu and goddess of prosperity, appears on many Gupta coins. So over here, Vishnu's wife Lakshmi has been one of the main deity which has been quite prevalent during that time, and she is the figure of Lakshmi can be seen on various coins during this particular dynasty. We even see that kings enjoyed a large number of powers which covered the political, administrative, and even the fields of military and judicial. They were the supreme commanders in chief of the army. Besides that, you can say Samudragupta and Chandragupta too, Skandagupta. These were very good administrators, but at the same time, they were the warrior kings. So they personally led their armies into various battles and expeditions like that. And the kings appointed all the governors and important post holders on their own, even the military and the civil officers as well. So we can say that the governors and their officers had to work under the control of the king. The king was the entire, you can say, supreme overlord over everything, and it was under the guidance and control of the king that all the other officers, whichever field they belonged to or whatever high post they had to be on, but they were supposed to work under the guidance and control of the king. The king was the source of all honors and titles. All land in the country was the property of the king. That means he was in charge, as he was considered to be the protector of the entire property. That means the entire kingdom, all the land belonged to that particular king. Whoever is working on that particular land, on that particular area, is basically working on the king's area or king's land. He would construct dams, give shelters to the foreigners. He could even impose, recover, and remit taxes also. So all these powers were all in the hands of the king, and he was the entire whole soul in charge of each and every field in the society, in the entire kingdom. If any property was unclaimed, that means it basically belongs to the king himself, and king can anytime take it and do whatever he feels like on that particular property. The king's titles were also very big and larger than life, showing what grand style of life they had. Like they were called as Parmeshwara or Maharajadhiraj or Param Bhattaraka. So these are various particular titles which were taken by the kings, the prince, and so on. Despite the divine element of attributes which were given to the Gupta kings, still we can say, as per the caste system, the Brahmins were considered as the chief custodians and interpreters of law. That means whatever the law, whatever the justice has to take place, that has to correlate with the religious facts or religious laws and philosophies. That means a Brahman would always tell the Gupta king what in a policy, in a law is correct or not as per the religion. And that is why they were considered as the main particular, you can say, chief custodians of law, because they would say this is not good according to the religion, or this is acceptable as per the religious facts also. And so they exercised a check on the royal power. So we cannot say that they had the unlimited or entire power, but yes, they were almost with the entire thing under their control. They were the monarchs, but on the other hand, simple policies, rules, many of them, many a times, were judged by the Brahmins, and they did tell the king what is right, what is not, which policy should be concluded or should be followed, and which policy should not be brought out into the society or should not be taken for the kingdom. So this was all basically the concept of monarchy that was followed during the Gupta age. Then we move on to the feature, that is the second feature, and it is the Council of Ministers. Now we can say that when you were doing civics and today's generation, when we are doing about constitution and thing, then we read about Prime Minister, Council of Ministers and all those things. So even at this particular time, we can say Council of Ministers have always been there with the kingship, with the courts. And that is why Council of Ministers was also one of the important aspect of the Gupta administration. The Gupta rulers had their councils. Councils are like meetings where they decide and discuss various things. Kalidas, the renowned poet, was basically referred as Mantri Parishad. It consisted of prince, high officials and various other, you can say, designatories who were all included in that particular meeting, in that council, and they were known as the people with the important charges. And so they were considered as ministers to those particular areas, and this was known as the Council of Various Ministers. Among the high officers were Kumar Matya and Sandhi Grahika. So Kumar Matyas were basically, they formed the chief cadre and recruiting high functionaries. जितने भी higher post के लोग होते थे, they were all included and appointed by the Kumar Matyas. And some of them even functioned in their own right and maintained their regular offices also. So that is how they were some of the important people who even appointed the designatories. Then we see the office of Sandhi Vigrahika, or Ministry of Peace and War. These were the first people. This designation was the first particular designation of its kind, which appeared first during the time of Samudragupta. And Hari Sen has written about it, and he has given this title to this particular ministry. The main duty of Sandhi Vigrahika was to deal with the feudatories. In addition to these officers, there are reference of dozens of other officers also who were engaged with various different aspects of society, kingdom, life itself, and how to manage better in the different spheres of the kingdom. So they were the people, those who were related to, you can say, managing military, fiscal, as well as, you can say, rural affairs and even the townships and so on and so forth. We can say over here it is given civil officials such as Amatyas, Kumar Matyas, they performed military functions also and were promoted to the rank of highest military officers at times. There were officers connected with land transactions also, and some of them maintained records of the lands, the sales of the lands, and whatever the money has been transacted in buying and selling of the lands. And that is how they kept on all the records related to the land. So land officers or department which were related to buying and selling of land, they were also well kept by the empire. Revenue system was also one of the important facts, or we can say it was an important factor of income, was an important source of income, and it was mainly collected in kind, not in cash but in kind. But rich peasants probably paid in cash also. They had enough money so they could pay it in cash, but the poor peasants, poor farmers, they did not have much of money. So what they used to pay as per the tax or the revenue was in kind, whatever their crops might have been or whatever they could give at that particular time in exchange of whatever the tax or revenue would have been over there for them. So the officers who were related to this department, that is the collection of the revenue, they were called as, they took taxes on commodities, and they were known as Shalkika. Shalkika, you will have to remember the name, it is given in the book, Shalkika. So here we finish the second particular aspect of the Gupta administration. Now next we move on to provincial and local administration. If you remember, we have already done this topic, provincial and local administration. First we will do the provincial administration, and after that we will move on to the local administration. Now when we move on to the provincial administration, we see the core of the empire directly was controlled by the Guptas. Was divided in bhuktis, each of which was placed under the charge of Uparika. Uparika was a governor or a person who was appointed by the king himself, and he was the one who controlled and directly looked after all the entire empire and the bhuktis. Bhuktis were divided into various other particular smaller segments, you can say, like Vishayas placed under in charge of Vishayapati, and the Vishaya was divided into smaller units. So just like that, Uparika would look after all the bhuktis. Bhuktis were divided into Vishayas. Vishayas were ruled by a particular one person known as Vishayapati, and these Vishayas were further divided into smaller units. This pattern, however, was present mainly in the territories which were directly looked after by the kings, because king was supposed to look after the entire empire. So under his particular, those territories which were directly under him, they had all these officers, the, you can say, Uparikas and Bhuktis and Vishayapatis and further on. Whereas in the other territories where already they had their other generals or their particular generals looking after those territories for the king, they themselves were involved in all the entire, you can say, upkeep of the kingdom or the territories which were under them. So elsewhere there existed different fiscal and administrative units such as Des, Mandala and Bhog, etc. So this Desa, Mandala, Bhoga, these were all those things, divisions of the kingdom as per the upkeep of the entire kingdom, and these were the places divided in the territories which were looked after by the generals or officers appointed by the king to work on his behalf. But which I have told you earlier, Uparika, Bhuktis and Vishayapatis, these were appointed in those places where the king himself was the one ruling over them, and so as he was busy with various different things, so these people divided and associated in the work which the king is supposed to do for these territories. Then we see the local administration was divided into two parts, that is the village administration and the town administration. Now village administration we'll do first. So here we see village administration, obviously we can understand, must be led by a village headman. So a village headman was supposed to look after it, and even the Gupta inscriptions talk about a leading person who was supposed to look after the administration of the village, or you can say small towns, called Vithis. Vithis is Vithis. So he was supposed to look after the village administration or the smaller towns. No land transaction could be affected without their consent, and this may have been also true of other important affairs. So under his particular domain, no particular transaction of land could take place unless and until he was supposed to give his consent for this. Thus, while villages in Mauryan times were managed from above, those in the Gupta time seems to have been managed from the grassroots level. That means in the Mauryan Empire, it was the king or the higher officials, they were the one looking directly about the villages. But over here, the villages themselves were looking out and looking for themselves. I mean, you can say a village headman was looking after the affairs of the village, and so the work started right from the grassroots level. Villages looked after themselves, and then the smaller towns, and so the bigger towns, larger territories, and so on and so forth. As the size increased, the rank of the officers also increased, but everybody at each level was looking after proper administration. Then we talk about town administration. There were various towns and towns were given a particular term known as janpadas. So these janpadas were basically issued, they issued their seals and coins also, and this was the main way of transactions in the towns. In the village you might have many of the kind and barter and things going on, but in the towns it was mainly the coins which were issued with them, the seals and coins. They were administered by the committee of five. Like you must have heard about the panchayats and so on in the village level. So over here we can say the similar kind of thing. A committee of five was supposed to look after the administration in the town. Some towns were being administered by some kind of parishads also. These parishads were a little larger assemblies or the groups, councils. The towns in the Gupta Empire were usually placed under an officer who was known as Purapala. Now Purapala, you have to keep the name very carefully. Somewhere you can write it down. Keep it, remember it, because these are the things which might be asked in one word answers. So what was the name of the person who used to look after the towns? It is Purapala. Purapala. So Purapala is the person. And the leading local men were also associated with the work of administration in the town. Leading local men means in their areas, whoever must have been the leading men, they used to take care of all the administration and administrative affairs of that particular area. Such people belonged to the guilds of artisans and traders which flourished during the Gupta age. That means they were mainly the artisans or the traders. And as they were wealthy or good enough to do this job, they used to look after the administration also. Vaishali in Bihar was an important town. There were separate guilds of artisans. These you can say the place Vaishali, it had a guild, means a particular group of people, those who are of a particular kind. And here the guild was of artisans. They were known as Kulika. And those of the merchant, they were known as the Shreshti. So Shreshti and Kulikas were the two different guilds in Vaishali, a very important town during the Gupta age. Remember, Kulika is the group of artisans and Shreshti was the group of merchant. So that is how we can say division after division for specialization, or you can say for proper implementation of administration at the grassroots level. This particular administration had divisions after division, and all were looked after by some or the other officer, person, designatory, or the king himself. So that is how the provincial and local administration of Gupta age was done. So in the next module, we will be doing about the golden age of Indian culture, that is the Gupta age. What was its impact on education and art, literature, culture, science, etc. That will be done in the next module. So with this, we come to the end of the module. Thank you.